So everybody, camera's on just for a sec so I can see your faces. If somebody has Rocco's number, can you text him, please? I have a feeling he slept through his alarm.
Yeah, I got it.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm gonna blow up his phone right now.
Go for it. That'll wake him up. It's a surefire thing. Okay.
Rocco, where are you?
Okay, so you are going to need some things today that are from the other parts of your kit. So first things first, you're going to need so this is just the demo. If you're not at this stage, don't stress, okay? You're going to need this sheet. So this sheet is what our templates are going to be built off of. So I have some examples of, there's Rocco. Thank you guys.
Sorry, Miss Grow.
That's okay, Rocco. How you doing?
I'm doing well. I lost track of time.
It's okay, it happens. Okay, so for what you guys are gonna need, you need this sheet currently. So I am just doing the demo on what the next steps are, but I am gonna show you how these are being used. So I went through all of my student work that I had here at the house and I pulled some of the better stencils for it. So I'm going to show you what they look like and kind of what the logic is behind everything I've been asking you to do, because I know that you're, at some point I did just say like, hey, keep it attached to the edges, and I didn't exactly give you a reason. But so I'm going to show you. So this is one, I actually don't remember whose this is. It's a very, very nice. So this is where we're headed. It's going to be a grid that's in your little flick bag here. You have a piece of illustration board in here. I'm going to resize these to be a slightly different size for you, but we won't worry about the dimensions of the grid yet. But that's what the grid will be on. That's what this is. It's a board. But you are going to be designing a stencil that goes into that grid. So in order to do that, you are going to need this page, which if you've been working on your stencil designs, you probably have a few that you like more than others. So you're going to choose 6 of those to go on here so that we can work out the differences with them. If you need an extra copy of this, if you go through yours, let me know. Actually, I will just go ahead and post it to Canvas so you can print it out. But I will put extra of those on Canvas. But when your stencils are finished, so if we look at this one here, which was very successful, here is his stencil. So his stencil keeps that little frame around the edge, and you'll notice that his design is attached to the edges and the negative space has been cut out. So what that allows you to do is when you put this down, so obviously his grid has been erased, but if I'm going to line this up here, let's see, there we go. So if I line that up, you're going to notice that it fits exactly within the 2x2 square. So what you do is you use the corner in here where you can see your lines and line it up with the square. But this person then decided, oh, well, to make a good pattern, I'm going to flip it over this way and trace it into the next square. I'm going to flip it down and trace it into the next one, and then flip it across and trace it into that one. So you end up with this little 4 square pattern. Now, he obviously alternated the direction he did these and colored them opposite. That is freedom that I give you. But just so you guys know, this is the direction that we are heading. I do have a lot of examples of stencils for you, so they can be very, very complicated. That's Ben's from last year. Ben Corey's here. I'll put it on a background so you can actually see it. So it's his initials stitched top and bottom. But when you have it in a repetitive pattern, you end up with something that looks almost like scripted, like script or like wallpaper. These are a whole section of good ideas from someone from last year. This is actually the one that ended up finalized. This is Luca Martinez. There is his finished stencil from last year. So you can see it's a very finite stencil. This whole middle part is obviously cut out. And there is the traced version. So he did something as simple as just flipping the ends over from path to path. Let's see, I know I have this one. This one is really nice. I think in terms of a stencil, it's probably the most complicated. This is Will Lycup's from last year. So his initials are WJL. So if you notice on the stencil, it reads, I'll put it so it's right reading for you guys. It reads WJL on it. But in fact, that means that the orientation goes this way. And when repeated in a pattern, it actually becomes something totally, totally different. But this is Will's test sheet. So he obviously had many other ideas that were going in different directions. So that is where we are headed. If you feel more comfortable working it out in your sketchbook ahead of time, you can, if you come up with a totally finalized one. But you'll notice that there are lots of different things that we've done on here where we've experimented, like Luca's middle initial is F. How do we work that into a square? There is working with numerous ideas here. But so if we were going to go ahead and actually put one of these into the box and make it into a stencil, how would we do that, right? So I am going to take one that I actually designed the other day for a finalized class because I thought it was kind of cool. And I think it's the one I want to use. Okay, guys, I'm going to ask your opinion here. Do you like this one more or this one?
The second one.
Second one? All right. So first things first, I need to get this one into my other one. So if I have a totally finalized version of this, I'm going to go ahead and rip the page out of my sketchbook. And I am going to cut just around this little 2x2 box here. So I've done some of the heavy lifting here, which is that I have colored the areas that I am going to remove. It makes my life a whole lot easier, just so I know what's going on. But I'm going to take this and I'm actually just going to coat the back of this little guy in graphite and get it onto my page. Okay, so I have made myself a little tiny graphite transfer here. Boom, it's covered in graphite. I am going to take this, and since I've cut it, I can actually just put it directly into one of these. So I'm going to go ahead. This is actually a little larger than 2 inches, it looks like. Actually, guys, I will email you a new sheet if that's the case, because I will resize these. So don't start this until I've sent you the new one to print out. So I'm going to take some tape and just go ahead and get this into the square, but I do want to show you what the next step is so you're not in the dark. Okay, so I'm just going to very lightly tack tape this down. And in this case, I'm actually going to go ahead. I'm just going to alter my square because I can do that. Okay, so I'm going to tape those 2 little corners down. And I'm going to go ahead and go over this with pen and it will transfer into the square. I'm also, just for the sake of being able to do this demo, I'm going to go ahead and use the edge of this so that I can make that square a little smaller. Okay. So like always, pressing really, really hard. I'm gonna go ahead and get this whole thing transferred on there. Oops, I made a mistake. That's not a big deal though. I'll go ahead and draw that in, that in, that in, make sure I got everything. Okay, I didn't get the middle. I'm gonna go ahead and get this piece and then I should have everything. Okay, so transferring is obviously easy. You guys are used to it at this point. There's my G. So you can see I made a mistake when I transferred that. That's totally not a big deal. It just means I'm gonna ignore it when I do this next step. So I am going to go ahead and pick a ruler, obviously. So this step you guys are not doing, I will send you a new sheet. But I want to make sure that this is actually, if you do want to get started, you would be doing exactly what I'm doing. You actually just need to adjust the box size to be 2 and 2x2. So I just used my 2x2 square and assumed I was right. I can do that. I don't necessarily recommend that. Let me send the new one. So I'm going to go ahead and just outline this in Sharpie really quickly. So, and this, I promise, while it feels like I'm being remedial with this, I'm telling you that as an adult who has made lots and lots of art in my life, I still need to do this or I will cut out the wrong parts. I do not work well unless I tell myself what I'm doing here. Okay. So you see how that mistake just wasn't a big deal because I just decided to not outline it once I was in this place. Okay, there we go. Do the inside here. Do this, and this. Okay, so now I have this really nice bold black outline on it. And I'm going to go ahead and make little black marks in the areas I'm going to remove. And I know this feels like I'm being patronizing. I promise you it's not, because I have cut a million of these. And I also know that if I don't do this for myself, I screw it up. So there are my little areas that I'm going to cut out. So now you can see what it's going to look like once it's actually a stencil. But pray tell, how does one make this into a stencil? We are going to actually take this and you're going to end up cutting it out. So we are going to cut around this little box. So you want to leave this whole edge on there. So that little frame is going to be part of your stencil in the long run. Okay, so that's all cut out. And you're going to need a couple more things out of your things. So one thing you're going to need is that in this little bag, you will find these. So this is a piece of clear plastic. It is called Duralar. It is backed with this very, very like wispy paper. You do not need this. I mean, you could use it as tracing paper if you really wanted to, but it's just to prevent this stuff from getting scratched. And you will be needing your glue stick. There's my glue stick. Your glue stick, if you haven't unpacked the entire thing, is in the brown paper bag, along with the graphite stick and the Prismacolors. So I'm going to take my glue stick and just like the opposite of righty tighty lefty loosey, or does it just suck? It may just suck. There we go. Come on, glue stick, you can do it. Okay, well, it has enough for me to at least get through the demo. Okay, so I'm gonna take my glue stick and I'm gonna coat the back of this in glue. All right, so this is now covered in glue, and I'm gonna go ahead and take it and stick it to a corner of the Duralar. So once you do that, I'm gonna rub it just lightly with your finger, just to make sure there are no bubbles. It's nicely attached. You wanna make sure that there is glue over the entire backing. We're gonna let that sit for a sec. Now, if you were doing this yourself, this wants to sit for at least 24 hours. I am going to go ahead and cut this wet. The reason I'm telling you to not do that is because the paper wrinkles very, very easily when it has been wetted by glue stick. I've cut enough of these that it's not going to be a problem for me, but you're more likely to tear your stencil if you do it this way. Okay, so I have it glued. I've let it hypothetically sit for 24 hours, and then you're going to pull out this. So this is an X-Acto blade. It comes with this funny little cover here, which just covers the blade. I tend to keep this out just when I'm working to put on, but you actually do in that package also have a cap that fits over the entire blade as well. Whichever one you feel like using, I tend to hang on to both, even though this one's just fancy packaging. You also have a package with replacement X-Acto blades in here. These will be important. I'd assume you at least go through 2 on this. So if I were to cut this out, so I am actually, just to show you what I am cutting on, if we were in my classroom, we would all be using cutting mats, but we are not in my classroom. So I have a stack of paper that I am going to be cutting into. You can use computer paper. I'm just using drawing paper because it was the most readily accessible thing here. You can use an old piece of cardboard. If you actually do have a cutting mat at your house, like if your mom has one for sewing, you can use that as well. But I'm going to go ahead and actually remove the parts of this stencil that need to be taken out. So I'm going to start, and I'm going to tell you this similarly. It helps to start with areas that don't have a lot of stuff going on. If you're not used to cutting Duralar, it's definitely a learning curve. So in this case, I'm actually first going to remove my stencil from the page. So I am pushing really hard. You don't want to underestimate just how hard you actually want to push with an X-Acto knife. So I go ahead and go through the plastic there, but you'll notice I have cut through at least 4 sheets probably behind this. But this is always a good place to start because it at least gives you a feel for just how hard you have to press to go through this in one shot. So I'll pull that away. So now I have this little square that is backed with plastic. And I am going to start to remove my design. So I'm going to start here at the corner. And you will feel yourself go all the way through the plastic. You kind of feel a little pop. And then, but I mean, you'll notice if I were to pull my hands away from this, like I'm denting my fingers. I'm pushing so hard. My fingers will go white when I do this. And when you are cutting curves, and I know that that feels very daunting, move the stencil, not the blade. So when I am cutting a curve like this, I'm going to take out the two straight edges first. So that one down to the corner, this one over to my design. And then I am pushing in and rotating my stencil. I am not moving the blade at all other than pulling it lightly towards myself. And that little piece will come out. So in this case, I'm just gonna go ahead and start with the curve. I'm coming to my newly measured line because this is a little over 2 inches. I'm gonna do all my corners first just because they are the simplest portion of the design, but it'll also give you an idea of why we are doing it the way we're doing it. This does require a little bit of a learning curve. I'm just gonna say that out loud and ahead of time so you don't get discouraged. It is possible you'll mess one up. That's why you have one full piece of paper to mess around, or plastic to mess around with this with, is because there is a chance you will mess this up. So now you can see I've removed all 4 of my little corners, and I'm going to actually start going and removing the middle parts of my design. So for a totally circular thing, what you'll notice is that my right hand is not moving. My left hand is moving the stencil. And my little blade is all the way through the paper behind it. Like I am all the way through that stencil. So I got my little circle cut out. Now it's a little uneven. If I were to look at it, if you come across something like that, it's actually much easier to trim a stencil than it is to cut one. I'm just gonna lightly trim off that little section where I slipped to make it a little more circular. These blades are very, very sharp. Be very careful with them. You can actually really hurt yourself with them if you want to, but please don't. They are actually like, they're probably they're the second most dangerous thing you're gonna use all year. The first most dangerous is a lino cutter because they hurt way worse when you cut yourself with them. And they're dull, which means that the cut is not as clean as with an X-Acto blade. So I'm gonna go ahead and continue removing all my little inside pieces here. And I'm going to remove this section. But you will notice that I do much more work with my left hand than with my right hand here. My right hand is really just holding this blade in place so that I can move the stencil around it. There are places like a straightaway where I will pull with my right hand. But on the whole, I am using my left hand to rotate the stencil. Okay, guys, one thing I will tell you is that you can feel when these break. I didn't snap the entire blade, so I'll be able to finish cutting the stencil with it, but I snapped the end off of it. You can see how it's flat on the end there now. I know it's not super obvious, but there's a little tiny piece of blade here in my paper. So there's an itsy bitsy little metal piece there. Just be careful if that happens. You'll feel it happen. You'll feel it snap in whatever you're touching. It's not a big deal. I can still finish a stencil with this. It's not a big thing, but just be aware that it does happen and don't freak out if it does. You'll still be able to make it through the page easy enough. These aren't so much about precision that you would need to change your blade at that point. Okay, so you can see I'm halfway through my stencil here. I'm gonna go ahead and excise the last big spot, and then I will do the little part of the G and show you how these work into a grid. And I will also show you how many pieces of paper I cut through for this so you can see just how hard I actually am pressing. Also, the more you remove from these, the more delicate they get because you are reducing the amount of area that is attached to itself. So you'll notice I'm being a lot more gingerly with my cuts here. I'm not doing as much as at once because I don't want to rip the rest of the stencil. So that came out fine, but you can see that some of my edges along here are a little wonky. They're a little straight because I actually made straight cuts. I'm gonna go ahead and just round those off by taking my X-Acto blade and trimming them. So that looks a lot nicer. And now I'm gonna remove my last little bit. But you can see now when I do that pull that my stencil actually is moving. So I'm gonna hold really well here and rotate the stencil. But this is where we have to start to be very careful because your stencil gets increasingly more delicate. Oh shit. Okay, that should do it. Almost there. There we go. That popped out. So there we are. I have a fully cut G stencil. So it looks really cute. Worked pretty well. So I'm going to show you how to put that into a grid. But first I want to show you just how many sheets of paper I actually went through here. So you'll see all those are all my little scraps. You don't need to keep those. But 1, 2, 3, 4, 4.5. 4.5 sheets of paper is about how hard I was pressing. Actually 5 if you count the fact that I was going through plastic on the top. So 5.5 to 6 in terms of pressure. So you press pretty damn hard. It is work, like my hand will cramp afterwards, but luckily you don't need to do this a bunch of times. So now I've got my cute little stencil, voila. And this can now go into a grid. So I'm gonna just use a mock grid in my sketchbook here. So let me draw a 2x2 really, really quickly, just so you can see. And I'm only going to draw 4 of them because I want you to just see what happens here when you flip them over. Is everyone, any questions as to where we are? Everyone okay? Anyone severely confused on anything I just said? Speak now if we'll have a hold your peace. I'm kidding. You can always ask me questions. Okay. So once my little 2x2 grid is down, so your 2x2 grid will end up on that board that you have, but we are so far from that stage right now that I'm not going to worry about it. But I am going to do this so you can see what a 4x4 box of this works, because these do tend to work best in 4s. There are ways you can work around the design problem that I make them 5 wide, which is purposely cruel, FYI. And I will give you all the measurements for that stuff later. Okay, so there is my little just 4 box of 2x2s. Pretty simple. So if I'm going to take my stencil and go ahead and put it into this, so you can use tack tape for this. I actually really recommend it. I'm just going to take a couple little pieces of tape and just lightly attach them to my edge of my stencil. It's no biggie. It's obviously the top one isn't going to work right now. So the reason we leave it attached to this little frame is so that I can take that frame and line it up onto the edge of the lines I've drawn for making a grid. So now I can go ahead and trace around my stencil and get it into this little 2x2 box. So I am obviously doing this in pen. I would prefer you do this in pencil, but there is one G. Oh, I forgot the middle. Luckily, because of those beautiful little registration lines, I can just put that right back in, put the middle of my G in, and there we have a G that's been transferred. So for sake of argument here, I'm going to show you what happens when we do flip this 4 times. So I'm going to flip this to the other side now. Let's see. So I'm going to go ahead and put that lined up on that drawn corner, put a little bit of tack tape down, hold my stencil nicely, and again, trace it into another box. The cleaner your tracing is, the easier this project gets. Okay, let's see. Oh, I forgot one. Put that in. All right, there's another G transferred in. I'm now going to flip this over this direction and trace it in again. But you can see how if you had a really delicate stencil that this part would be a little more difficult because you can't push as hard against your stencil. Okay, so there's another G, and I'm going to go ahead and flip it this direction and line it up again at that same corner and tack tape it down. And go ahead and draw that in. Sorry, I know this is boring to watch, but I'm trying to be quick. Okay. So there are my 4 Gs transferred in. Now, how you color these is up to you. But obviously, your pencil grid lines are going to get erased. But let's just say for funsies that I want to color my backgrounds black on these. I want my Gs to be white. What you end up doing is going in and outlining using Sharpie. So this is obviously the last step. And filling in obviously much nicer than this. But you decide which section of the negative or positive space you want to fill out black. This is totally up to you. You can switch it throughout the piece as well. It does not have to be entirely consistent throughout the entire thing. But you can see how little areas where that circle was previously just a circle now actually become a pattern element. So you see how this is going to become largely more pattern than it will G. So that is how we do that. That is where this project is headed. So if you think you have a design that is ready to become a stencil, I'm going to have a turn-in due this afternoon. Actually, no, probably tomorrow afternoon. Yeah, it'll be tomorrow afternoon because I don't teach all my periods today. I will have a turn-in tomorrow afternoon for these to get approval for me for you to actually start on the step where you begin putting them into boxes and finalizing your design. Any questions for me?
Miss Grau, could you make it like a little, because I have a big chem test on Wednesday and I have to just like spend my whole Tuesday studying for that. So could you make it like a Thursday?
I want people to get started. I won't care if you turn it in a little bit late.
Okay.
I am going to have the turn in tomorrow though, because I know people will probably want to get started. So don't stress about the date so much as that know that you want to be at least trying to move on to this step by the end of this week. Okay.
Thank you.
No problem. Any other questions for me?
Or like tracing it out, so we do need it traced out after we pick kind of what we want, or
well, once you pick what you want, then you're going to get it onto this stuff. We're going to get it onto that sheet and then it gets cut into a stencil. So I need to see it because I need to make sure it's going to be a viable stencil before you actually get to this transferring step.
Okay.
Okay.
Miss Grau.
Yes, dear.
So I I've been like working on it in my sketchbook. And, like, you said to like do the six of the ideas on that box. But like I've already chose the one that I want to do. So do I have to do that?
I have seniors. You're in a unique position because I have senior design. Your design will absolutely work as a stencil. So can you just send me the one that you want? I mean, you can send me all of your back work if you want to as well, but you can go ahead and move on to this stage where you're getting it into the correct square.
Oh, okay. So like
I've seen your design at so many levels. I want to see your final before I say, hey, go put it on the page. But I think you're at the point that you can move on to the next step.
Okay. Yeah. Cause so I don't have to do all do my 6 ideas on each 3.
No. You've already done enough ideas that I'm not worried. Okay. That sheet is really that sheet is hey, I completely screwed up my stencil beyond belief. I need to make another one sheet.
So just do it one more time and then send you a picture of that one.
Oh, wait, what was that?
Should I just do it on just do it once on the grid sheet and then send you a picture of that one as my turn in?
Honestly, just send me the one that send me your sketchbook experiments with a check mark next to the one you want to do. And then I'll say yay or nay and you can get it on that sheet. Okay.
Okay.
Make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, guys. Any other questions for me? All right. I'm gonna let y'all go. Today was a demo day only. Go work, go do stuff. Love y'all. Be safe, be well, be wonderful. Have an absolutely gorgeous week. And I will see you all tomorrow. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Thank you, Miss Grau. Have a good day.
Great day, everybody.
Miss Girl, how will you see us tomorrow?
Oh, I'm sorry, Wednesday.
Okay. Thank you.
Sorry. Period rotations are a mythical thing to me. I show up and I do things.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Bye, guys.
I have one more like personal question for my whole. Can I do you know, like how I combine the J and the F on the portfolio?
Yeah.
Can I do that same design? I don't know what it is. I just really like the whole like combining them.
Absolutely.
That for the stencil because I have it like right there.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see. I would say that you want the point of your J to be a little bit larger. Instead of it having something that just free sits in that box, actually have it touch the edges of the box. It'll look very similar in a lot of ways to this one, which was super successful.
Okay. And then does that like the same thing for like the point of the F right there?
I would leave that short.
Just because it
And that's because visually we never read Fs.
Yeah.
We read E's as being all the same length.
Okay.
Okay.
And then for the actual submission thing that we're submitting, is it like the actual stencil, like the one you're holding, or just the design?
Just the drawing. I just need to say yes or no.
Got it. Okay.
Okay.
All right, thank you so much.
No problem, Jack. Have a great day.
Yep.
Bye, Declan.